John chapter 18 verse 36 says, "My kingdom," said Jesus, "doesn't consist of what you see around you. If it did, my followers would fight so that I wouldn't be handed over to the Jews. But I'm not that kind of king, not the world's kind of king."
This verse in particular stirred curiosity in my heart, and I believe it was because it was drawing me closer to understanding and learning more about who Jesus was. And it was the sweetest moment when I was reading this passage in particular that these words fell into my heart. And it was that Jesus is a different kind of king. And I remember when it dropped into my heart, I just felt so taken back. It brought tears to my eyes to just think about those words. Jesus is a different kind of king. If you look at Jesus's life here on earth, from the way that he entered, the way that he lived, the way that he moved and spoke, it was completely different to the way that a king from our world's perspective would live, would enter, and would move. His people who were waiting for the Messiah to come were waiting for a great king. But Jesus was nothing like they expected. Jesus went against everything that they thought that he would be for them. And ultimately what he asked of them and what he also asks of us is completely different to the way in which the world invites us to live and to move and to speak. And ultimately, it was this difference that drove them to bring Jesus before Pilate so that he would be crucified, so that he would be killed. And that is the context where you find that passage in. So this verse in particular led me to see that because Jesus was a different kind of king, his followers would naturally be a different kind of people. When he came, he brought about teachings that asked us to move in such a different way. He would say, don't repay evil with evil, repay evil with good. He would say, if your enemy is hungry, feed them. If your enemy is thirsty, give them something to drink. He called us to love, to be patient, to be kind, and also to not hold wrongs against people. And to be completely honest, I struggle with doing the things that Jesus asks of us a lot of the times. But the beautiful thing about this is that Jesus has given us a helper. And the helper is the Holy Spirit. And it is only with and through the Holy Spirit that we're actually able to live out the way in which Jesus calls us to live, which is different to this world. When you accept Jesus into your life, he lives inside of you. And when he lives inside of you, his nature will naturally flourish through you. And when it is flourishing through you, you will live and move and respond differently in this world. And different is who Jesus was and who he is. Now, I know it might seem simple to state Jesus, he's a different kind of king. But as followers of Christ, we know the difference having Christ in our life makes. And for people who don't know, they may simply need to know that he is different. And so in saying that, I want to share a poem with you. It's not my own words and the author is unknown, but I hope that from hearing this message, understanding the heart behind this shirt, and hearing this poem, that it leads you to become more curious about who Jesus is and begin the journey, hopefully, of discovering and learning more about him.
The greatest man in history. Jesus had no servants, yet they called him master. Had no degree, yet they called him teacher. Had no medicines, yet they called him healer. He had no army, yet kings feared him. He won no military battles, yet he conquered the world. He did not live in a castle, yet they called him Lord. He ruled no nations, yet they called him king. Committed no crime, yet they crucified him. He was buried in a tomb, yet he lives today. I feel honored to serve such a leader who loves us.